Okay, so this project really started 4 years ago. I built these two vanities when we moved into our house. We totally remodeled this house, built all new cabinets, and these are the vanities. And I promised my wife that I would put a makeup place for her right in the middle of the vanities. And obviously, that never happened. So today, we're going to make that happen. I'm going to get started on building this 4 years later. It starts with this walnut top made out of 3 boards. I've already glued this up. And so, what I'm going to do is disassemble it, cut it apart to make an lid that opens that will hold a mirror. So what I'm doing right now is laying out the lines for where I want to make my cuts. The reason I'm doing it this way is because when I close it, the grain will all match. It'll all kind of flow together, and I think it'll be a nice look. So I'm going to lay this out, and then we're going to go to the table saw and make 3 cuts to break it apart. Okay, so here's the first cut, and then we'll make the exact same cut on the other side, and then we'll cut the back side off, and that'll leave us with a lid section. Okay, so here you can take a look at kind of how it all comes back together. Um, this piece right here is the lid section, and here I'm going to have a little bit of trouble figuring out which way. That's not right. That's not right. Should have marked it before I cut it. I'll get it eventually. No, that's not going to work either. There you go. Okay, so we get it back to how it's supposed to be. And what I need to do next is take the lid section and we're going to make it thinner than the rest of the top. This is 1.1 total thickness right now. I'm going to mill that lid section down to about 3/4, 5/8. Can't remember exactly what I went to. But I just run it through my 20-inch planer. The one mistake I did make here, and I'm kind of upset with myself, is I wanted to take passes off both sides so that it was equally removing material. That way it didn't bow too bad on me. But also, when I took material off the front, you start losing the pattern you have on the top of your table, that flow of grain, because you're taking wood off that top of that lid. So I took probably a little bit too much off the top, changed the pattern a little bit. Here you can see I've got my lid stuck up next against the side piece, so you can see the difference in thickness now. Now I'm making a little runner piece that will be glued back up with this, that the lid can fall and close on. That'll make more sense here soon. As I run it through the planer, I'm going to come over and check it to make sure that when I stack it on the lid, it's the exact same thickness as the top. Okay, so I've dry assembled right now. So I've put dominoes with the festal, little floating tenons, and dry assembled this together and clamped it. And I'm fitting the lid. So I want it to fit in pretty tight. I want to not have a huge gap, and the hinges that we're going to use are going to allow for that to be possible. So I basically just hand plane it to fit where I want it. Then I got to install hinges. Before I glue anything up, I'm going to go ahead and cut hinge pockets. For the hinges, I'm using Brusso knife hinges. These are center pivot hinges. These will make sense as we install them. The real challenge with these and trick with these is making sure you get your mortise perfect. These are 3/8 wide. I'm actually using an 1/8 inch bit here, which is, I don't know why I chose to do that. I'll change to my 3/8 bit when I do the side rails on the table. But basically, I use my plunge router. I set the fence. Got to be real careful here because you're on a real narrow piece of wood. You just kind of got to stay aware of that and make sure you don't tilt the router. And yeah, like I said, I use that 1/8 inch bit, so I've got to clear out another 1/8 in the middle, and I just use my 1/4 inch chisel to do that. So once I get all the waste cleared out, basically just slide in, check the fit. That's how the door will go on. So it'll slide right into these hinges, and you'll see that as we put it all together here soon. So as I mentioned, I switched to a 3/8 bit. It's just a spiral up cut. It's a little bit easier on this one because you've got 1.1 as opposed to 3/4 to run your router on. And the reason I'm doing this before I glue this up is because I couldn't get in there. Once I glue up the top, I wouldn't be able to get the router in there to cut this mortise. So That's why I pre-assemble everything. You can see the Festool domino mortise holes there. That's for the floating tenons that kind of line everything up and hold it together. Now on these, the end of these pivot hinges is actually a radius, and it matches the radius of the router bit, so it actually all fits in there quite nice. And you can see here how it slides onto the hinges. You put the hinges into the tabletop and then slide your lid into the hinges. Basically, the hinges are concealed. You don't see them, and it has a nice motion. They're really well made hinges, so there's no play or slop in them. One thing I had to do is, and I kind of assumed I would have to do this, is round over that top edge so it clears as you open the lid. This is a great opportunity to stop and tell you about today's sponsor, Hawthorne, a premium tailored brand for personal care, specially designed for men. They have an actual layout on their website, a quiz that you can take, and they tailor their products around this quiz. It's actually really cool. Things like how dry is your skin, how often do you shower, do you sweat a lot, all these things go into this quiz, and they tailor all the products you need for your own personal care. One thing I especially liked about it is once it populated all of your products, you were able to go through and get more info about them. You can see what ingredients are in them. It's really important to me that some of them don't have certain ingredients. So they disclose all that information, they provide it for you, which is something I really appreciate. Another great thing about Hawthorne is it provides free shipping and returns. So if you don't like the products they send you, you can send them back and they'll retailer new products for you to try. For me, personal care is pretty simple. All I need is a bar of soap, some shampoo, some conditioner, maybe some deodorant definitely, and some lotion. I have dry skin, super dry hands. My face dries out and chaps out real easy, especially the fact that I work with sawdust. So go take Hawthorne's quiz today, get started on your personal self-care routine. All right, so the next step in this project is to make a base for that whole top to sit on, and that's what I'm doing here. Again, we're using the Festool. This was kind of a quick project for me. I had 2 days to make this, so a lot of, the Festool is great at quick joinery like this, and it's really pretty strong. So I used the domino for most of the joinery on this project. Basically, this is just a 4-piece frame that we're gluing together using the dominoes, and then I'm going to slide in a couple rails into dados, which will become a box for when you open the lid. You'll have a storage inside, basically. It'll make sense as we get going. And then while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and shoot finish on the lid and have that ready to go. So when this comes out of the clamps, we can do a few things to it and put it all together. Okay, so like I said, it's going to make a little box when you open the lid. So what has to happen is I have to rabbet the bottom out to fit a 1/4-inch piece of walnut veneered plywood. This is a great little way to do it. Once you assemble the case, you just use a rabbet bit. It has a little, it's basically it cuts a 1/2 inch deep rabbet using this bearing that's offset from the diameter of the cutter head. And you just basically run it around on your router table. It works really well. I do this on a lot of my cases. Once I have that done, we'll move to cutting dados for the divider pieces. That I fortunately had a jig already set up that I could use a bushing and a 3/8 bit and just run a 3/8 dado real quick and easy, and then mill my dividers down to 3/8 and cut them to length, and that's done. Pretty simple job. You can do this process before you assemble it just as well. It was kind of an afterthought for me when I test fitted the top, put it on there, and realized, I need some dividers in here because things are going to slide down underneath and get hidden away in the box. So we installed the dividers. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I left them like a 1/4 inch too wide, so See a little bit sticking up as I assemble it. I'm gonna have to go back with a hand plane. There's nothing I can do at this point once I glue on everything. I want to make sure they line up on the rabbit side so the bottom sits nice and flush in that opening, and then we'll plane them down from the top side. So out of the clamps, I'm going to plane these down. First thing I'm going to do is get my scrub plane. Since I'm using I got to take off so much material. You know, 3 or 4 passes with the scrub plane makes pretty quick work of it, and then I can do my last finishing passes with this low angle jack plane that I have. It's a really cool plane. Really quick process, and once this is done, we can put the top on and kind of see how it all comes together. You can kind of see here how there's a box inside there, a little space. The bottom we'll put on last after I install it, but like I said, it's just a 1/4 inch sheet of veneer plywood. Now let's install the mirror. I rabbited out a little pocket for it to sit in, and I'm gluing it in with an adhesive epoxy. I used the X-Carve to cut out that pocket. This is kind of cheating a little bit because we've got a solid wood piece that's going to float and move. I used a flexible epoxy. I'm a little curious to see how well this works long term. Ideally, you would veneer this up so you have a stable piece, but time did not permit that. So I used solid. I'm hoping it stays stable and it doesn't bow or possibly even break the mirror. We'll find out. So here's how it slides right into those hinges, nice and clean. I love these hinges. Really just well-made hardware from Brusso, I think that's how you say it. Putting this last screw in was a little bit tricky. I cut it very close. I had to put a t-shirt down to keep from scratching up the tabletop. Okay, so one of the last steps is to attach the base to the top. I'm just using buttons so it allows that top to float and move. That's not permanently screwed down. And then what we'll do is we'll take it in, screw it to the side of those vanity cabinets, and then screw on the bottom, and it's done. Now, a couple things I want to mention is, one, I used the vanities are made out of ash and stained. I used walnut because I had it laying around. I didn't have any ash, so I thought the walnut would mesh well. I was a little bit worried at this point because it's a little bit of a contrast. I think in the end it really looked pretty good, but here soon we're going to set up a camera and see how Emily reacts, and you'll see my nervousness in it, thinking, oh no, she may not like the contrasting wood. But in the end, I think it worked out. Also, the sides of the cabinets will get painted. The top section that you see will get a nice walnut kind of backsplash trim around it. Let's set up the camera and let's see how she likes it.
Wow! Oh my goodness! Why would I not like it?
I didn't think you'd like the wood.
Because it doesn't match just right?
I don't think it looks bad. I was like, she's not gonna like the fact it doesn't match.
Could you just not find anything to match it?
I didn't have it. I was like, I'm just gonna build this, and this is what I have. So
Pretty cool. Just need to figure this out, right?
yeah, I need to paint that.
See, I can put my makeup in here. It looks so pretty. Oh my goodness. So I saw on the computer you had moved a bunch of files, and it said makeup desk, and I was like, is that my 10-year anniversary present, my makeup desk?
It's not your 10-year anniversary present.
I know, I was happy about it. I was like, please let that be.
Okay, so that winds it down. I think we did good here. She seemed really happy. I mean, honestly, she's just super happy that I finally got it done. It's one of those honey-do list things that I've been putting off forever. So I'm glad I got it done for her. I think it looks really cool. We're going to paint the sides and finish it all out. And now she has a functional makeup desk that she can sit at and do her makeup, which makes me happy because she's happy. It only took 4 years, but hey, it's done, and we can scratch it off the list. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. We will see you next time.